Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Wow, I am super excited. Callie, thank you so much for joining me today on Coaching Call. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Sifu. It's awesome to reconnect. I'm doing really well. Yeah, how about you?
Oh, exceptional. Getting better every day. A little bit. Right?
That's the goal.
That is. You know, a lot of people, all they do is complain all day long. We are so fortunate to be alive, right?
Yes.
And I know you know that more than anybody else, right?
Yeah, the fortune is every moment, and yeah, the complaining does it eats away at that gratitude for what's here, right? So
Exactly. So, Callie, we want to get to know you. So the best way for me, and I think it really speaks volumes when we get to know you from childhood. So where'd you grow up and who influenced you before the age of 10? You know, who were those people that really impacted you?
Thank you, Sifu. What a beautiful question. I feel like I'm gonna learn more than anyone else here. So I grew up right outside of Chicago, Illinois.
Mm,
And before the age of 10, I had my parents, I had my stepfather, and I had some stepsisters.
nice.
I think those were the biggest influences. Yeah.
That's really cool. So how did they influence you? What was it about them? How did they
Mm.
treat you? All these things, right? That makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a blended family kind of situation, right? And so
Mhm.
there's a lot of
Brady Bunch?
complexity. Yeah, it's very much Brady Bunch. Yeah, I'm technically an only child, but I mean, if I count up all the other, people that were similar to siblings or have siblings or
Mm,
what have you, it's like 10, right? So
mm,
bigger than the Brady Bunch. So that actually, in and of itself, was a huge influence to me. I being like technically an only child without a you know maternal sibling, right?
mm.
I really got along with all these other, quasi siblings like they were siblings, right? And I
Nice.
think it really opened me up. Like prior to my stepsisters coming into my life, I was around 5 at that time. And I was really shy. Like I was like hanging onto my mom's leg, all the time. And
One of those kids,
um,
huh?
I was one of those kids, yeah, but then, like, my stepsisters came into my life, and it was a complete transformation and complete the other
Wow.
side, and just, like, opening of myself and the silliness of the world and just, like, embracing,
Mm,
laughter and joy, all the time, and so I think that bond with them, allowed me to just open up and feel comfortable in other vicinities and ways and with other people that I probably wouldn't have before they entered my life.
mm. They opened up the possibilities for you to be
Yeah.
silly,
Yeah.
have fun. Let go of your mom's
Yeah.
leg.
Yeah. Right. Let go of your leg and be playful. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I see so many kids because I do work with kids and they come in and I'll say hi immediately I'm like, where'd they go? They went behind their parent, whether it's mom or dad, it doesn't matter. But when we consider that we have these people in our lives that we feel so safe with. And I think that's why we run behind a leg, because
Mm.
these are strangers, right? Sometimes, and it could be a family member. Sometimes we're running away from because they're like, oh, they pinch my cheek all the time or something of that nature.
Right.
But when we consider, even a mom, she can hear a child, you know, 10 rooms away. At the mall, they know, oh, where's Johnny? Or where's Sue? Where's Callie? She's behind my leg. I know where she is. So I think it's an important aspect that to have had your siblings, I'm going to call them siblings because they became that to you, right?
Perfect. Yes.
To come into your life and open up the possibility of, there's a world beyond mom. There's a world
Yeah.
beyond the safety net that I have. And let's explore it and have some fun with it.
Most definitely. Yeah, I think I mean, they really allowed me to understand who I was, right? Rather than
Mm,
that, like, I mean, before, if I really think about it, that holding onto my mom's leg was like a protection, right? There's a lot of
mhm.
fear within that protection. And so kind of branching out from that, you realize like, oh my God, I'm so curious and I love to explore. And there's so much in this world, right? So let's embrace it.
Yeah, yeah. So you we've had a conversation before. You had issues with food early on,
Mm,
and you've really focused your life on food. And it's not because you want to eat everything in front of you. It's because you had issues with food. And a lot of kids have one of either one way or the other way. One is where they'll eat everything. That was me. Or other kids who you can't even get them to eat broccoli, right? Or
yeah.
anything green. I still sit at a table with adults that are like, if it's green, I don't want it. I'm like, what?
Wow. Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yes,
And they
those
want
things
their
get
things
ingrained.
burnt, they want everything burnt, and it's like, oh my goodness. Let me give
Yeah,
you some
some
charcoal.
ye yeah, some long-lasting patterns there.
Oh yeah, yeah. So tell us what
Yeah.
happened to you, and how, and we're gonna get to what you're doing today, but how did that affect you initially?
Yeah, so the journey did originally start probably similar to you, where I ate everything. I
Mm,
was, like, the most curious, so I guess maybe after my sisters came in my life, I opened up and became incredibly curious about
mm,
specifically food. Like, food was the thing that got me creative, or was a creative outlet for me. So I would get in the kitchen, I didn't have a recipe, and I would grab random things, and I would cook them.
really?
And this was before the Food Network. Yeah, and I would, like, have my friends and family watch me in the kitchen, and then I'd present it to them, and they would, unfortunately, they'd have to eat it. So they were troopers because I don't think most of the time it was edible, right? I was, like, 6.
Mm,
So that was kind of the start with food, and my mom and I, we would go out to, dinners where I would order, like, the weirdest thing on the menu. It was just food was always something that I was curious about, and I
yeah.
loved the taste and the experience of it. So I ended up going to culinary school, and it originally was all about flavor. The exploration, the curiosity was always like, how can I get more, experience more, right? Um, the real transformation for food happened when I studied and lived in Italy for a while, and that's where I would say my relationship with food changed, and it took a 180. But before that time, I didn't even know there was a relationship with food, right?
Mm,
So there was this deep awakening and awareness that happened there, um, by their cultural standards, right? The way that they respected food, where it came from, the taste, the quality, the seasons, and also
Mm,
the act of sharing it with other people. That food was not just this commodity anymore. It wasn't just about the taste. The taste was celebrated, but the taste
right.
was simple and therefore celebrated in a deeper way. And that kind of beauty and like truth was really profound. And I didn't quite understand it at the time.
Mhm, mhm,
I was like 20 years old, right? So it was I was coming from this fast-paced culture that we have around food, and honestly, probably thinking more about diet with food and my
mm,
image with food, right? So to be free of that there and just enjoy food for what it is and the beauty and connecting to the land was really profound. So that was a very big awakening. But then I came back to the States, and shortly thereafter, that's when my gut issues really kind of took a hit.
mm,
I'd had gut issues for a long time, but it was after Italy where it was really like I couldn't ignore them anymore. Long story short is I had actually a tapeworm, and I had
mm,
some, you know, some bigger issues that had to be addressed, and therefore I had to eliminate a lot of foods in that process to get healthy again. And coming from a place of wanting to eat everything and being in the food industry and loving, you know, everything about food, and having to limit myself was really challenging. But the most maybe the only thing that would have awoken me to really understand food on a deeper level and
mm,
myself on a deeper level, right? What it meant. I eliminated all these foods, and then I thought I should be feeling better. I'm sticking to this diet that I
right,
should
right.
be, eating clean. I should be feeling well, and I still wasn't feeling great.
Mm,
And so then I had to really, I really had to tap in and become more mindful about how I was eating and the intention of what I was eating, slowing down. I realized a lot of my emotional eating patterns, which, for me, a lot of the time was actually not eating
mm,
because of stress and different
right,
things.
right, right.
And then I would overeat at other points because I was really hungry, right? So I really was able to see what was going on in my relationship with food in a way that didn't feel great at the time,
Mhm,
but allowed me to, get to know myself and my relationship with food, our relationship with food, in a really deep way. Um, and actually, because I love food so much, it was the one thing that allowed me to really tap into my consciousness, and
mm.
has created a whole other journey from my inner world, which is beautiful.
That is beautiful, that is beautiful. You said so much, and my brain is going, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh." But it's incredible. One of the things that you definitely talked about is how you s made food for other people. You're 6 years old, and they had to eat it, right? So but
Right.
but it's funny because it reminded me when I was a kid, I would go in the kitchen myself and make something to eat, and then my siblings would be like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Oh, something I made." Like, "Can I taste it?" "Yeah." But I didn't make them, sit there and watch me eat. So all of a sudden, they're like, "Okay, tomorrow morning you're making breakfast," because I would cook steak and eggs and all these crazy, and then sometimes I would even put a banana in steak, and they're like, "That's disgusting, but let me taste it." And they would taste it. They're like, "Wow, that's really interesting. Can you make it for me?" So thinking of that, and then
Mm.
I'm Colombian. By the way, I'm number 10 of 12.
Wow. Amazing. I was going to
I'm
ask
the
you, how many siblings do you have? So you really have 10.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I was the first one born in the hospital. All my other siblings, my other 9 siblings were born at home,
Wow.
um, or in the barn, I don't know. But, so, you know, in Colombia, tapeworm was common.
Yeah.
extremely common.
Yeah.
And I remember my parents giving a specific, maybe it was white cheese or something, and that would not make the tapeworm happy. And the tapeworm would actually come out when they were number two. And it was
Right.
dangerous because it also could come back in. So it was like they
Mm.
had to watch every time my siblings went to the restroom to make sure that the tapeworm left entirely.
Wow. Right.
But
Right.
that was incredible but I've never heard of tapeworm here in the States until you said something. But
Yeah.
what winds up happening, and you talked about the difference and how simple it was in Italy. And I think that your problem probably, I may be wrong, I may be right, or I may be right on, but I think it's the food in other countries is clean compared to the
Mm.
food we have here in the States.
Mm.
It's all processed, it's all junk, right?
Yeah.
Think about the
That's
breads that we eat in the States. They're illegal in Europe.
right.
They're illegal in Europe. Hello? Why is that?
Exactly. Exactly. Red flag.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think when I was young, my mom was very much a foodie and we would go to these different restaurants and I would order the weird stuff, right? Like oysters or what have you.
Mhm.
But at home, it was a pretty like I'll just say like traditional process lunch bag, right?
Mm.
I had gushers and goldfish and yeah,
Right.
all processed food. So nothing against her, it was just the culture of how I grew up. But yeah, I think having that for years and years, it really made my gut susceptible to the tapeworm. I think you're 100% right.
Mm. Maybe.
Maybe, right. Who knows, really? Yeah,
But
right.
when you consider all that, so you have a kid who's finicky, won't eat anything, and then the parents will wind up doing, and I found my ex-wife trying to almost do the same thing for I have two boys, right? One of my
Mm,
kids would eat anything and everything because he was like me. I'm like, yeah, I'll eat that. I'll try it. Listen, at least try it. If you don't like it, you don't have to have it twice. But my other one was like, no, I don't want that. So she would go and make exactly what he wanted every single
mm.
time. So did he have her wrapped around his finger or did she feel bad for him? Because, one of the things that with kids, they'll eat whatever you put in front of them if they're hungry enough, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So it's a matter of helping them to grow their palate, if you will, right? Because that's what you're
yeah.
talking about, your palate, and there's a refined palate where you can taste something, but we're losing that. How
Mm,
many times have you been to a restaurant and the food is already salty, and then
mm.
you see somebody? I'm going to take some water, but this is people are doing
Right, right,
this with salt. And then they're
right.
talking and they're like and I'm like, "Hello, are you having salt with your food?" It's
Right.
pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think coming from the culinary world, like you should really put enough salt where you're not tasting the salt, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know what those people are doing. They must really like salt.
Oof. But, when I cook, I use 0 salt. I don't even have
Really?
salt in my house.
Wow.
Do
Okay,
you know
why you
why?
use salt? But yeah, why?
Because I wanna taste my food.
Mm,
When you
mm,
can train your palate to taste, you don't need these other things. Right,
mm.
and it's funny, the other day I was thinking back to my great-great-great-grandfather who lived to be 113, and I'm thinking, they didn't have refrigerators back then. So because the way they preserved the food, it was covered in salt, did that have anything to do with it? So,
Mm,
when we think about our health and the food, it all goes together. It truly
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Most definitely. Yeah, it's a lot of my clients, like, I'll talk about a dish that I recently made, and I love vegetables. Like, I'm
Mm,
in love with vegetables, and so that's mainly what I make is these, beautiful dishes with a lot of kind of weird vegetables, right?
mhm.
Sunchokes and fennel and all that stuff. And a
Nice.
lot of the time they don't even know what that is, right? And so we kind of have to work our way into those areas of the store. But there's something about when I share in the beginning with working with someone, like I'll share what I'm eating and just a lot of veggies and clean things, right? And to me, it's the most delicious thing I could ever think because
Mm,
I am my palate is can decipher those different vegetables and like the subtleties of each one, and they're so
mhm.
beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And to them in the beginning of working with someone, like usually there's this feeling like where is the flavor, right? If I talk about a bowl of veggies, they're like, "How does that taste good?" That sounds
Ah,
awful. And
mhm.
so there's this progression that's really cool to watch them evolve over time, where eventually they'll say, that bowl of veggies, that's what I'm craving, and that sounds amazing, right? So there is
That's
this
cool.
kind of like, yeah, there's this progression of letting go. Like we don't need that much flavor. So you've obviously gotten to a point of major refinement without even salt. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like, here's people who say, "Oh, I love broccoli, but with cheese on it."
Right.
Or
That's
or
my
like a
mom.
pound of
Yeah,
some sort of sauce or something, and I'm like, "That's not broccoli. You're disguising it," right? Or
totally.
they'll,
Yes.
they'll have a potato with, some tons of butter and sour cream and all this, and I'm like, "Are you eating a potato?"
Right.
Or like a lot of
What are you
times
really eating?
I'll be at a
Yeah.
restaurant and, I know certain foods are gonna be super salty. So, if I do order it, it's like a little bit of it. And then when they ask me, vegetables, I said, "Yeah, could you not put anything on it?" They're like, "Really?" Like, "Yeah."
Right.
So even at home, when I'm eating vegetables, people go, "You're not putting anything on it?" I'm like, "No, it's a vegetable." They're like,
You
"Oh,
don't need anything. Yeah.
you're weird." I've
Right.
been called weird
Right.
because I don't put anything on I don't put butter
Oh,
on my broccoli.
mhm.
I don't put anything on my sweet potato because guess what?
Yeah.
It's a sweet potato. I don't eat regular potatoes anymore. I did when I was a kid. I don't
Yeah.
eat pasta. I
Mm.
feel bloated, right?
Yeah.
And so people say to me,
Yeah.
"Well, eat whole wheat pasta." I'm like, "Okay, just whatever fits in my hand. That's it. That's all. That's the
Right.
amount of pasta I'll eat. What if it's whole
Yeah.
wheat?" I just I
Well,
don't do it anymore.
I was gonna s I it's what you said, I feel bloated, right? I think that is
Mhm.
a huge thing that a lot of people ignore, right? A lot of people think it's normal to have like gas. It's normal to feel bloated. It's normal to have like a headache
Mm.
or whatever it is. And a lot of the time, we don't even know we have those things. I know for myself, in the tapeworm days, I
Oof.
was bloated every single day. I
Mm.
had brain fog every single day. But I knew I didn't feel well, but I didn't know how bad I felt, right? Until I really regained my health and realized, holy crap, I've been living like like a zombie, really, right? And so there's a really beautiful food is a really beautiful vehicle to understanding ourselves and getting in touch with our
Mhm.
bodies on a really deep level. And so what you said about the bloating and actually listening to that, right? A lot of people don't listen. And that's really the key is like, oh, it's okay to feel bloated now, what made me feel bloated, right? There's some
Mhm.
exploration that can be done to really understand that. And then there's some courage to say it was the pasta and I don't know if I need that next time. Is it worth it, right?
Mm,
To feel bloated next time? I Yeah, there are some things that I don't eat because it's not worth it to me to feel crappy, right? Like
right.
it's draining, and at the end of the day, if we are just energy and just, here to share light energy, right?
Hmm.
If there's food or anything that's dampening that, it's probably wise to get rid of it.
That's right. It's very interesting because oh my God, it's probably almost 30 years, maybe longer, that I really don't add salt to anything or even cook with
Wow.
salt. So I one of my clients in Forest Hills had I mean, he still does, a supermarket, but it was a kosher supermarket. So he
Mhm.
had a rabbi in the back, the whole deal, everything very, I mean, super busy place. So one day he's like, "Oh, you should stop by." So one day I said, "You know what? I'm near it. I'm going to go there. I'm going to stop by." I just went to say hello to him. And he's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, Raphael." So he goes, "Walk with me." I'm like, "Okay." So he takes the shopping cart and he starts putting stuff in the shopping cart. I'm like, "Oh, maybe he's taking it off the shelves. Maybe it's no good," because he is very methodical in the way he does
Mm.
things and everything.
Mm.
This shopping cart was filled to the top. I thought things were starting to fall off. And then he goes, "Bag these for me." He tells somebody. So he bags them. It was a gift for me.
Oh my gosh.
I was in shock. I was like, "No, you don't have." He goes, "No, no, no." He goes, "I'm
Wow.
honored that you visited me." And I'm like, I came for you. I didn't come for this stuff." He goes, "No, no, no." And I said, "Okay, now I don't want this food to go to waste because that would have been wrong, right? It was a gift. And if it would have gone to waste, it would have been terrible."
Mhm.
So I said, "Okay, I'm going to call a bunch of friends and I'm going to cook." So one of the
Beautiful.
things that he had given me was a chicken. I didn't know that they prepared the chicken because they rubbed it in salt.
Oh.
Yes. And it was a kosher chicken. So I cook it and
Mm.
everything. I got so sick. It was
Oh,
delicious. It was
right.
delicious, but because it was, I guess, infused, if you will, with salt. Everybody's like, "Oh, this meal is delicious." Everybody left. I got so sick afterwards. And then I realized, what was it? What was it? And I'm like, "Oh, the chicken seemed a little salty." And then there was some
Mm.
left. I said, let me taste it. I was like, "Oh, wow." Because I only tasted the chicken by itself. Before it was, you mixing it with other food and it was okay. And I was
Right.
like, "Oh, that's what did it." And
Wow.
recently I was at somebody's house and they made all this stuff for the Super Bowl. I didn't stay for the
Mm.
Super Bowl. I went home. I watched it by myself. It's better that way. But what ended up happening is they had all this food out. So I was like, "Oh, I love chicken wings." So I had some chicken wings. They had different flavors of chicken wings, and then they had ribs. And can I tell you, I did not feel good that
Yeah.
evening. Later on,
Yeah.
2, 3 in the morning, I was up. I was like, "Oh man, too much salt."
Yeah.
So my
Mm.
body knows
Yeah.
too much salt's no good for you, big guy. So don't do it.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say what's really coming through is like, you know, now that you've kind of cleansed yourself with salt, I can only imagine what it's like going out to a restaurant now because I think it's salty, but I still eat salt at home. So
Mm,
I'm sure it's maybe excruciating in the sense of eating it with, that much salt. But there's, this purification process, right? That you've
mhm,
done, letting go of the desire for salt. And it's the same thing. I think everyone can do that and probably there's probably some wiggle room to do that within our relationship with food, right? I
yeah.
had I was cooking dinner with a friend recently and we are making a soup. she's gained some weight recently, and she's kind of like, I eat really well. I don't know what's going on. And so I'm not really sure her eating patterns, right? But we made soup together, and it was like a simple bone broth with, some buckwheat noodles and some bok choy, right? Like it was a
Right.
pretty simple situation. But to me, after we did, and I did add some tamari and some other things for flavor, it tasted great to me at the end, right? And I said, "Can you check this? Like, see what you think. Is this going to be good for you?" And she had to add like sugar and salt, and I mean, she
Mm.
had to add sugar to the broth, right? Because
Wow.
to her, it was not flavorful. She's like, "It tastes bad." And to
Right.
me, I'm like, "I actually think it tastes great," you know? So I think it just goes to show there is a really beautiful um opportunity in refining our palate, and um like you've done so well.
I think. Well, let me be blunt with you. If you saw how much I ate when I was a kid, you would you would wonder if I had a tapeworm because I should have been 500-600 pounds. But meanwhile, if
Yeah,
I turned sideways, you would miss me.
right.
But I used to have 5 dinners every night. Every
Well,
five
I did
dinners.
too, but I had a
I
tapeworm,
mean,
so we were
a full
really
plate, sometimes twice in a plate, and that's one sitting. Then I would go, that would be at my sister, I live with my sister, I would be at home. Then I'd go across the street for a barbecue. Then I would go next door. And then my sister and my brother-in-law taught at the seminary, and there I would have 2 dinners. And that was common for me. And then if you
Ah,
ask my sister, she go, "What does Raphael do after dinner?" She goes, "He makes a sandwich. It's about 14 inches high, and we
oh
go
my
he go
gosh.
through a loaf of bread every day, and all cold cuts or peanut butter. Peanut butter and jelly was my thing when I was a kid. I don't do that anymore, but
Really? Yeah.
it was an abundant amount of food, and no wonder I don't know how I kept it off, to be honest. I
Well, I
moved
was
a
gonna
lot,
say, yeah, you were probably moving and very active, right?
extremely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I understand. I can relate, although I did have a tapeworm, so I don't know if that
Mm,
counts.
right. Yeah, yeah. Out of all my siblings, I think I'm one of the ones that didn't have a tapeworm. Weird.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I also
Wow.
left Colombia when I was 8. They're
Okay.
older, so maybe, you know,
Yeah, maybe there's something with that. Sure.
maybe they ate longer there.
Right, right. Right.
So you've really, as a chef, you understand what has to go into a meal, right? And
Mm,
certain certain meals, especially if you're going to work for a restaurant, if you don't put a lot of something in it,
mm,
it's not going to taste good to the customers.
mm.
But for you, what happens is you start learning to adapt to that palate, if you will, right? So if you're working at a place that makes very salty type of food or very spicy type of food, and because you have to taste it over and over and over just to make sure it's the way they want it, then
Yeah.
you start adapting, don't you?
Yeah, totally.
Mm,
Yeah, working in the food industry is really interesting.
dude, I can
Um,
imagine.
it's very interesting. It's very fast paced. There's a lot going on, of course. And yeah, it's very intense, right? In the sense of needing to get the flavor right, the temperature right, out to the customer on time, right? Um, and so, yeah, it's very easy to morph into that environment, and the taste that they're
Mhm.
trying to provide in that environment. Um, yeah, I had a company called Nona Eats where I worked with a variety of different chefs, and we'd actually bring them into people's homes for intimate
Mm,
dinner experiences, private chefing needs, that kind of thing. And I really, most of these chefs came from different restaurant kitchens. Some of them had their own things going on, but for the most part, they were working underneath someone else. And so to stand on their own and really stand in their own craft and their own taste profile was actually a really big leap for a lot of them, and actually kind of challenging to do, right? To really stand and say, you know, I've been trained this way my whole life, right?
Mm,
And yet, like, to me, this other thing feels authentic, right? Less salt, more whatever flavor in this kind of regard, less flavor, right? And I think actually, as chefs, one of the boldest things you can do is reducing the complexity and bringing out the simplicity in a food. And that's actually what I experienced in Italy, and that's why I thought it was so beautiful, right?
oh
Because
yeah.
it was just a tomato on a plate with some olive oil and salt, and it was the best thing I ever had, right? Because
Right.
there's a depth of
Oh yeah.
knowing where that tomato was from, that it was picked from the garden over here. I know who grew it. There's a connection of that and the land, and
Mhm.
there's something way deeper going on. And that kind of subtlety and simplicity is that's felt, in a really deep way, and that's kind of what I shared with our chefs and myself now, whenever I cook, is like there's an energetic that's going into the
Mm.
food, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, and so whether someone else cooked for you and you're eating that plate of food and having gratitude for that plate of food, or you cooked it for yourself or for some other people, you're feeling the energy of what went into that meal, right?
Mm. Yeah, without a doubt. When you consider it's very interesting because with all the different cooking shows, I used to love to watch Top Chef and all these different people. But when they cooked simpler, they actually won, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, it was very interesting when they did that whole dish in a spoon. You ever seen that one? They did like
No, but
it was
yeah.
like a spoon, a regular spoon, and they had to put all whatever food it was, one meal in a spoon, and you taste. I was like, that's
Wow.
crazy. That's that's
Right.
that's beyond nuts, right? Because who would eat that way anyway? But a lot of times when we think about the buffets and people keep going over and over to a buffet, oh my gosh, and then people like that comedian came out and he goes that they used to tell him, you get out of here. We don't want you here anymore because you're eating all of it. uh, so but we're not eating to consider our health. We're eating with our eyes. We're not eating with our gut, right? We're not eating properly. And I love the fact that you not only became a chef, but you understood the complexity of food, yet the simplicity of food. And when I consider food as medicine. I'm sure you
Yeah.
do too, right?
Yeah, of course.
Why did you start the kind of businesses that you are currently doing today? I mean, you're the founder of Eat In Method, right?
Yes. Yes.
Why was that so important to you?
Yeah, I mean, it that specifically was, after the private chefing business that I just spoke about, you know, going into people's homes and serving them a meal that
Mm,
was beautiful, multi-course, right? Something that they probably haven't experienced even in their home before, right? Was a really amazing opportunity. It was really wonderful. But at the end of the day, I took a step back and realized, we're serving them for an hour to 3 hours or something, right? They're getting that
right.
experience for that amount of time. But what's happening outside of that time, right?
Mm,
Um, and that's what I became most interested in, because I go into these kitchens where they're not cooking this is the only meal cooked in their home ever. They
right.
never cook for themselves, right? their cupboards are, barren. They the presence within the meal, like if instructed, was there, but outside of the instruction was really lackluster, right? And that's okay. I've been there 100%.
Mm.
But so there, it felt like there was an opportunity to share something much deeper that went out, that was, more 24/7 rather than those 3 hours, of a celebratory meal. Um, so that was really the catalyst for why I created the Eat In method, which really helps people redesign their relationship with food,
Mm.
everything from actually getting your kitchen in order, reorganizing it so it's very simple and easy to prepare something, to, really getting to know your emotional behaviors around food, which is a very
Mm.
deep process. To then even connecting with the land and seeing food as an opportunity to connect with nature and other people also, in community, right? So that was really the the intention,
Mhm.
behind this methodology. And then I started really applying that to food coaching to meet it, because it's really not a prescription, right? This methodology is meeting people where they are, because food and any sort of evolution is a journey, right? And so we're
Correct.
all at different parts of the journey, and as we evolve, a new kind of concept will really resonate, right? And then there's a new one after that, and we just keep kind of increasing, our awareness and broadening our perspective in different ways and building upon, this gained knowledge. So um, yeah.
So you're a food coach. Why do I need a food coach? Maybe because I feel bad after I eat certain foods, but I don't know. Maybe because I can't lose this weight. Maybe because I can't gain weight. That I had that as a problem as a kid. Even though I ate 5 dinners every night and I used to eat like a whole box of cereal for breakfast and all kinds of crazy things, I
Right.
could not gain weight at all.
Mm.
Not only did I eat all those, I used to drink 3 to 4 food gainer protein drinks, big ones, like 32 ounces at a pop. I
Wow.
couldn't gain
Right.
weight. I worked out. I did. So that's why people thought I had a tapeworm. I didn't have a tapeworm.
Yeah.
It was just my
Yeah.
metabolism was so fast. So why would I need Callie in my life? Hmm.
Mm.
Why would you need to come into my life or anybody's life?
Yeah, I think so. There's, first of all, a distinction between, what I do, as I call calling it food coaching, right? Versus like nutrition.
Mm,
There, so it feels like, nutrition is about really understanding what's on your plate and what you're putting into your body. And I think that's really important. That's a very big piece of what, goes into food coaching or what I do. But there's something much deeper that I also address. Like I said before, it's not a prescription. I'm not telling you what to eat. I'm actually allowing you to guide yourself to what is really truly going to give you the energy that you're seeking.
mm,
Um, and so that also, as I've shared a couple times now, like includes, emotional awareness and understanding our emotional behaviors around
mm,
eating. We all have food patterns, and we're going through this wave of life, right? And so
mm,
really good things happen, and then sometimes bad things happen, and we're just always being tested with different things, right? And so food follows that journey typically, right? If we're on a high, sometimes that can look like overindulging, sometimes that could be less indulging, right? Depending on your own patterns. We all have different ones. And so starting to understand that, um, and regulating that to a certain extent, and then getting in tune with yourself, right? And
mm,
your intuition and intuitive eating, which I'll say it again, is not a prescription. It's a journey, you know?
Mhm.
So that's really the beauty, is to open up, trust in how you care for yourself, how you nourish yourself. Um, because I think, there's a lot of noise out there telling us what to do. And so if you can truly start to trust yourself and listen to yourself, you don't have to worry about any of that, right?
Mm.
And you become, I guess, unstoppable, right? In self-care.
Yeah, you do. I know several people, quite a bit of people who understood that their food was a detriment to their health. One of them who actually gave us a heart here, Shelley Debin, is an incredible human being, and she
Mm.
transformed her whole life. And she's a health coach, and she's amazing. But what I love that you're doing is that you're allowing people to figure it out kind of for themselves. You're their guide, if you will, right? Because a lot of people, it, I think if you're allergic to something, and what a doctor would probably tell you is, okay, we got to eliminate. How do we eliminate? We take one thing away, see how that feels. But you can't do it for a day. That's what people, oh, I'm not going to eat, so and so for a day. No, you got to do it for 7 to 14 days in order to see how that affects you. And,
Yeah,
and, and then you have to go through a whole list of things, or maybe take everything out and slowly introduce one thing and give it
yeah.
time for it to see how it affects your body. So a lot of people are not willing to do that. Why are we such stubborn people in this world?
Uh, well, I think there's a lot to that question. Thank you for that. Um, I I'll speak for myself. Back in the day, it felt really scary to
Mm,
eliminate something. There's, I think, actually a fair amount of attachment with food, that there's emotional attachment, right? To a lot of
mhm,
these things, from early on in our lives. And actually, behind the emotional attachment to food is actually just the emotion, right? It's the desire for love, belonging, um, peace, right? But we attached a food to it. So I think
mm,
understanding and seeing that, um, and then realizing, oh, it's actually not the food that I'm seeking and attached to, right? Allows us to let it go, more easily. But I think at the root of most of it is that, which is also kind of a deep answer. And if you're listening and you're like, that doesn't resonate at all, it's okay.
mm. Right,
There's
right.
also, once again, a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of, if we're on, if we go out to eat 5 times a week,
Mm.
and there's a menu that is all meat, and we're trying to not eat meat, right? That can feel super overwhelming, right? There's really a lot of temptation around, and so that can be hard to, let go.
You know, I'm also thinking how people blame food for their emotions. So we have emotional eating, and they're
Right.
like, I gained all this weight because every time I get sad, I have to eat this, or whenever
Yeah.
this happens, I have to do that. But instead of really focusing on what the issues are and not use food as an excuse, I think that we would be way better off. Also, one of the other things, and I want to know your feelings on fast. Should I say it? Fast food.
Right.
Super fast.
Uh, yeah, fast food.
Mm,
Jeez. Yeah, this could be a whole other episode.
it could be. We can talk for
Yeah,
hours on that.
right, right. It really could be, because I'll just go back to Italy. One of the things that was so profound to me there that I didn't even really understand at the time was this feeling of slow food, right?
Mm,
Of sitting down to enjoy a meal, the same amount of food on the table, right? I'm going
yeah.
to eat the same amount, but I'm eating it over the course of 3 hours rather than 30 minutes, right?
Or
And
4.
right, or 4, yeah, standing up at the kitchen table, right? And so just that concept alone of having the time and space to digest our food is really profound. That was one of the things that I realized, after the tapeworm and really cleaning out my diet, and I was
Right.
eating the cleanest ever, but I was still doing it fast, right? And I was still not enjoying it.
Mm,
And I still had gas and GI issues, right? So it wasn't until I actually really truly slowed down, um, where I was able to digest my food. So there's that physical component of eating
mhm,
slower, but there's also our bodies when we eat slow, when we take the time to relax, right? Um, we can actually, that presence opens up something much greater than just ingesting food, right? We're
mm,
actually able to be present with other people. We're actually able to enjoy our surroundings, right? We're actually able to soak in the subtleties and the little things in life, right? And that is that goes a really long way, um, at any time, and especially when we're eating food. So that's kind of I think, energetic, digestive part of the fast food. There's a whole other thing we can talk about in terms of what's actually in fast food,
mm.
and where it's coming from. And I think that's a whole other episode.
Yes, for sure. I was at a restaurant and I was not done with my meal. So, but I turned around to talk to this person. When I came back, my plate was gone. I was like, what happened? And somebody else said, oh, the waiter just took it. So I said to the waiter, I said, I was not done. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. But instead of asking me, am I done? But because they assume that, hey, you stopped eating, you're not just
Mhm.
doing that you must be
Right,
done. But I
right.
was digesting my food, right? So, of course, they had to bring me another dish because I was still hungry. But when you consider, and you talked about breaking bread, really, right? Breaking bread is where we get to come together. We have an opportunity to share, to have the time to process the food, right? To process the conversation. I think that is so rich, and we are missing that. And a lot of people, why do fast food restaurants have tables inside of it? Because they want you to come in and they still want to kind of give you that, but they're still giving you the junk, right? So, because I have never seen a fast food restaurant without tables. And I always ask that question. Why do they have? Oh, I get it. Because they want you to feel like it's natural, like you should come in and have a conversation, right? But they're still giving you the junk, right? Shouldn't it be like if you sit down and say, we're going to give you better food?
Right, right. Yeah, also what's coming to mind is how many people are actually at those tables?
Mm,
And if there are people at the tables, how many of them are alone and eating under 10 minutes, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I think it's like there's the options there, but the Yeah, the quality of sitting is not there, right?
Hmm. Hmm. You know, when I go on trips, like I go to like California a lot, or I'll go to different places. On my way from the airport to my hotel, I see where's a local supermarket because I'm gonna buy my breakfast.
Mm,
So I'll go buy fruits and vegetables, and that's gonna be my breakfast. And people go, "I'll meet you for breakfast." I said, "I'll already have eaten breakfast." When you're eating breakfast, it'll be my lunchtime. But I get that. So I would rather, you know, go and spend 20, $30 in getting fruits and vegetables than spending 20, $30 and getting junk to eat.
yeah.
So that's a huge thing for me. And people like, "Oh, we know you. You already got your breakfast." I'm like, "That's right."
Yeah, I do the same thing, and I feel weird if I don't.
Mm,
Traveling is actually it can be a challenging thing in terms of eating, right?
mhm.
If you don't have if you're not staying in a place where there's a kitchen or you don't have the time to actually cook for yourself, eating out all the time is, to me, feels so very taxing on my body. I have family coming into town tomorrow, and so I have 4 or 5 days, where all they wanna do is eat out, and I'm kinda thinking to myself, like, I might not feel great next week, right? Like, I'm gonna have to
You know
I'm
it
gonna have
already.
to supplement these meals, yeah, with a salad beforehand or something, right? So, like, I feel okay because I know that about myself. We talk about the refinement and the palate. Like, it seems like you and I have maybe gotten to a place where um, we can really feel a a home cooked meal versus eating out. And you've made a little bit of progress if you can feel that.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. Pardon my business phone is going off, but I don't have to answer it. So
Mm. Okay.
when we
No worries.
consider, when we consider, I knew people when I was 16, 17, who every meal, these were like billionaires that I used to work for in the city. Every meal was bought. They
Yeah.
didn't cook. Every breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks were brought in. Every single one, and they would order from a couple of different restaurants. They already knew them. They called it. "Oh, we're coming," because there was a standing order sometimes, unless they said we're going to do something different. But usually, I had a standing order, and it was probably all very rich food, right?
Yeah.
But they were not their physicality didn't say I'm healthy, right?
Right.
You can tell when somebody looks healthy or somebody is healthy. I think
Yeah.
there's a difference, right? Because somebody can look healthy, meanwhile they're smoking, right? So it's like, hello, what are you doing?
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
you're smoking, or
Yeah.
they're gonna run and get some fast food, and I'm like, why? So for me,
Yeah.
it's very interesting I when I had my kids and they were young, they didn't even know what soda tasted like. They only got to taste soda because they went to school in different parties, right? But in my
Right.
home, I
Right.
never had it. My
Right.
kids never went to a fast food restaurant. They didn't even know what that was, right?
Mm.
And they would always go like, "Dad, I want to get the toy." I'm like, "I can take you to the toy store. We don't have to go to a fast food place to get a toy." So
Right.
a lot of parents, even today, if you consider it, technology has changed the way we babysit or we take care of our
Mm.
children because, oh
Mm.
man, they're going to be annoying. Let me give them a tablet, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
they want that toy. I'll take them to that restaurant and give them happy meal, right?
Mm.
Who's being satisfied with the happy meal? Not the kid, not fully, right? And a lot of people go, you know what? It's okay. They're young. No, you're starting them bad early. It's what you're doing, right?
Yeah, those habits are definitely being ingrained, unfortunately. Yeah.
Mm,
You said something really interesting in the realm of someone looking healthy and versus feeling healthy. And I think in our culture we really idolize being thin, right?
mm,
And so someone that has a lot of anxiety might actually not be eating as much. Anxiety, sometimes people don't have an appetite, right? And so they could be really thin, and some people could actually envy that, that
mm,
person, that thinness, right? But on the inside, they're in complete turmoil, right?
right.
And dis-ease or disease, right?
Mm,
Because their insides are, stressed out all the time.
mhm.
And eventually that does catch up with us.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
yeah, and I think that's an important I was in that category, I think, for some years, and if I really was honest with myself, you know, I I could have changed my habits a little bit earlier, but
Mm. Well, you know what? You did it. And I
mm,
always tell somebody goes, "Oh, I'm too old to do something." No, you're not. You're not. You can
no.
start
Yeah, no.
today. Today's a
Yeah,
beautiful day to start. And
yeah,
if you've been eating terrible for the last 30 years, hey, guess what? You don't have to do it for the next 30 or the next 90 or whatever it is, right? You can start today and take control of the rest of your life. Right?
yes. Yes, and if you make that choice, you're actually correcting the past too.
Mhm.
So, and you can always, the past is never a failure, right? There's always a learning. And if that gets you to that actual transformation, right, there's a there's a correction happening. So,
Mhm.
absolutely, never too late.
Never too late. Callie,
Yeah.
this was incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time and spending it with me and get letting me know a little bit more about you. You are an
Yeah.
onion, and who doesn't like onions anyway, right? Uh,
Right, the caramelized kind, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's very interesting, when we talk to different people and they're like, "Ugh, I don't like this," or "Ugh, I don't like that."
Yeah,
Did you taste it? Did you try it? No. Or
right.
once, once. So
Yeah.
we need to constantly, I think, evolve as a
Mhm.
human being, as a species, that we need to know that the foods that we're eating, sometimes we need to know where they come from too. And you talked about that earlier. I had this woman on my show, and Shelly, she was super amazing. 75 years old.
Wow.
75 years old. She looked like she was 30. She was absolutely gorgeous. I mean,
Wow.
wow. I was like, too bad she's married because she was so beautiful. But she said, I eat one meal a day and I've been doing it forever. And she goes, I do not eat a chicken unless I know the chicken. She
Mm,
goes, I don't buy
wow.
my chickens at the supermarket. I go to my
Yeah,
local farmer and I know how he feeds the chickens.
yeah.
So, but
Wow.
free range chickens, but she actually goes there and she goes, I'll take, you know, Sally the chicken. I'll eat Sally for today.
I'll eat Sally, right.
so, so whatever, but she said, I will never buy frozen
Yeah,
because she likes it fresh. So that's a whole nother conversation as well. But a lot of
it
people say
is.
that if you buy fresh at the supermarket, it's not really fresh because it's been sitting in transportation for some time. It's been
Totally.
sitting at the supermarket for some time. And by the time you get it, it's maybe 2 weeks later. Right. So is it
Yeah.
fresh?
Right,
So
or
that's
more than 2 weeks.
right. So that's why they
Yeah.
say that frozen foods or frozen, let's say frozen strawberries are fresher than the ones that are thawed out, right? Or the ones that were never frozen because they freeze them immediately. So they keep the same nutrients so that when you unfreeze them or you put them in a milkshake, they are exactly right, like within hours. So that makes a
Yes.
difference.
It makes a huge difference. I would say the only exception is obviously if you're buying local and like Sally, you know where that
Mhm,
chicken or produce or strawberry is coming from, obviously.
mhm,
And, the nutrition profile of that food is much greater
mhm,
right after it's picked, right? That's
right,
its peak nutritional content. So you're getting that benefit. You're also getting the peak of freshness in terms of flavor. And that's when you don't need any salt. So it's
right.
100%. I totally agree.
You have been, a breath of sunshine, if you will. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being on Coaching Call with me. And I know you also have a book. You want to mention your book?
Yes. Yeah, I do have a book. It's called Eating In by Design, and that is really featuring that Eat In method that we were talking about a little bit earlier in the sense of how to apply those concepts to your own home, organizing your own kitchen, understanding what foods make you feel really good because we're all a little bit different, right? And then also how to, create a mindful food experience, sharing it with others, also getting back to the land, understanding why that is important, to understand where our food comes from. So that's that's out on Amazon if you're interested. I'll also say the link to my website right now, calliecavanaugh.com. I'm still doing my food coaching and that sort of thing. I've also recently been working with companies to help them innovate new things.
Mm,
So if you go to this link, that's what you're going to be seeing. And know if you're still interested in the food kind of aspect, just reach out, and I'd be happy to, converse and learn more about you. So thank you, Seafood. This was really wonderful, and I learned a ton, even about your first question in terms of opening my eyes from a young perspective. What influenced me back then? I think I have some things to ponder. So thank you so
yeah,
much.
yeah. Uh, I really appreciate you being here. And I'm going to leave you with this thought, which, believe it or not, brought tears to my eyes when someone had me do it. Could you go back and sit with that child that you were as if you're sitting next to them and then say, I forgive you?
Mhm.
That's deep, isn't
It's beautiful.
it?
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
for
you
that.
so much for being here with me today. I truly appreciate you. And I look forward
Likewise.
to our continued connection.
Likewise. All right. Have a wonderful day.
Let me ask you one last question, if you don't mind. What would you say that someone can do right now who may be struggling with food?
Okay. Well, I'll try to answer this quickly.
There you
Um,
go.
it's a so I there's a
Definitely
lot
reach
of
out to
different
you because you can give them a deeper answer,
right.
right? For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I can definitely give you a deeper answer. Feel free to reach out. And I would I would say, first and foremost, I don't know there's a bazillion challenges that can come up through food. So whatever
Mhm.
that is, um, ask yourself how long has that been there and where did that come from?
Mm.
Start with that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Great way to start. Thank you so much. Have
Yeah.
yourself an
Right.
exceptional day and happy
You
Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Yeah, likewise. All right.
All right.
Have a wonderful one, Seafood. Thank you so much.
Enjoy.